Businesses today face a pressing issue: how to manage their resources prudently while still investing in technology to remain competitive during an economic slump. We have the answer and the hack to this challenge. Well, to be more precise, our experts have the answer. Please welcome Phani Belede from Mphasis Inc., Suresh Subbu, co-founder and board member at NFTPeddle LLC, Paul Solano, CEO at 4E Consulting Group, and Uzair Khan, managing partner at Arya Consulting Partners. So let's begin our panel discussion on the topic, optimizing your tech spending during a recession. Please welcome them to the stage and give them a round of applause.
Thank you, everyone. Glad to be here again with my fellow panelists here. We're going to try and make this about learning, have some good conversation along the way. So in terms of very quick and short introductions, my name is Uzair Khan. I'm a managing partner in a boutique management and technology consulting company called Arya Consulting Partners. One of our I lead our digital modernization pillar, and we do basically everything under the sun, from tech strategy, implementations, operational efficiency, and so on and so forth. So with that, I'll hand it over to my panel members to please introduce themselves.
Thanks, Uzair. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Happy to be here on the stage again. Phani Belede. I'm a partner and a client technology officer at Mphasis. We are a Blackstone-owned company, an IT services firm that provides full services from infrastructure, application development, IT support, to all the way implementing AI technologies. Prior to this, I was a senior information officer at financial services firms like AIG, and prior to that at MetLife. Happy to be part of this conversation.
My name is Paul Solano. I work with, we have a consulting firm, boutique consulting firm focused mostly on the IoT data space, working with multiple clients on those fronts. And previously I had a lot of experience on the non-functional side of technology, basically process optimization, monitoring, security, etc. So it gives you a little bit of background that I can share in this conversation.
Hi guys, Suresh Subbu, 20 years of experience in IT consulting, pretty much into blockchain and Web3. As of now, I am like a board member and co-founder for NFTPeddle, which is a B2B marketplace for NFTs. Thank you.
All right, thank you, guys. So I know we're talking about optimizing tech spend during an economic downturn, recession, but this is also very applicable to your normal business operations, a smart business, to make sure you run a tight ship and optimize your costs, especially when it comes to technology. So with that said, what's the role and impact of technology during an economic downturn or a recession or a event like COVID-19?
I can take that first. So again, technology clearly plays a role across the entire business value stream, right? Especially during scenarios where there's a potential downturn, recessions, or a huge impact such as COVID. Technology has the ability to really bring both people and process together, and at the same time help address or eliminate any additional expenses that the organizations have. Therefore, they're able to run their operations with fewer technologies and minimal number of technologies. The second part is there's also an opportunity to optimize the process itself, to eliminate any waste that occurs in the process, so that the technology is able to optimize and then use it prudently for the purposes.
All right, now good insights. Paul?
Yeah, I would add to that the key question, I think, needs to be taken back, which is, it depends really on where you were when the recession hit you, right? And the problem is, if you'd never looked into technology from a perspective of am I spending the right amount of money on this? Is my process ready for be optimized or do cost reduction due to a recession? You find most organizations when they're growing and they're selling and things are going right, they completely forget about best practices, optimization, cost reduction, lean enterprise exercises. And when the recession hits, then the technology is not in place nor ready to actually do the work. So it goes back to really, is it cost effective? Can we reduce the cost of technology during a recession? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe we haven't done the homework before that point, so that when we're faced with that, and it happened to many organizations during the pandemic, they were unable to adjust or adapt, and we have seen the consequences, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Suresh?
So given my experience into consulting and re-architecting organizations, recession or not, technology is always place to look at optimizing the spend, making a business case, make sure that it delivers what is required for business. At the end of the day, everything boils down to need versus want. Someone wants it, but need is totally different. I need air to breathe, to live, or to survive, but I want a Tesla. It's like, it's totally different things, but everything boils down to business case and ROI, which is return on investments. So it is always under the scrutiny, but now it is on a much bigger and wider lens, so that the business has to sustain and survive. Sustenance is the key during recession, irrespective of which vertical the industry operates on.
Yeah, no, all very good points. And the one thing I would like to add there is technology can also, during a recession or during a time where you really have to watch that piggy bank, help make processes more efficient. So there's various, and we're going to talk about this in the later on in this conversation, but I think it forces an organization to be more efficient, not just say it out loud, but now when you know there are unfortunately some heads on the chopping block, you need to be more efficient. And it also provides an opportunity to develop more innovative business models. So take COVID, for example. A lot of companies came out with innovative solutions during COVID. So you can, in a way, you can view a recession or a pandemic as a catalyst for innovation. It's a different lens to look at, and it might be a bit of a hard pill to swallow for some, because it's an unfortunate event. It's not something that you would think I want to make money off of. However, keeping the personal things aside and just looking at it from a business opportunity perspective, the amount of millionaires and billionaires that were made during the pandemic was significant. So a lot of those millionaires and billionaires, especially in the tech world, the reason why they were able to do that is because they were proactive in their IT infrastructure even before the COVID hit or before the recession hits. All right, so let's talk about what are some of the strategies that we can employ, businesses can employ, whether big or small, to optimize their tech spend during either a recession, a pandemic, or just a very bad year a business has.
Yeah.
I shall take it.
Go ahead.
Thanks. So any organizations, they need to categorize it onto labor, non-labor spend. That is where they kind of identify, what are the levers. When it comes to non-labor, I'm speaking about the technical spend, pretty much hardware asset management, software asset management, opportunities to automate, opportunities to move into cloud, look at utilization of the assets, and then look at what is the right treatment towards it. Because we used to run a lot of Lean and Six Sigma projects for manufacturing verticals as well as fintech. So as part of these exercises, what we do is the last thing we touch is the labor once everything is rolled out, because no one can replace human brains, and that is what everyone thinks, right? When automation comes in, someone's job is gone, but the person's job is going to get better because someone needs to manage the robots or like the automation scripts. So there is a linear set of framework or architectures which we follow as part of advocacy, but yeah, it depends on company to company, industry to industry, and their priority. Do they need to give like a higher margin? Are they talking about sustenance? Are they talking about like, a competitor's growth versus their growth? So the treatments and the solutions are different.
Suresh, you're talking about governance, right? So
Enterprise governance, yeah.
There's also an opportunity to optimize the IT process itself, right? Let's take application development. A typical traditional software development lifecycle has a process where requirements to application development, to testing and deployment. But if you take modern practices such as DevOps, or do shift left strategies where you can do like ATD, BTD type approaches, where you are a lot more able to predict the outcome, shrink the timeline, but at the same time be more realistic about and also more practical about how do you get to the production, right? That also allows you to require fewer number of IT resources to manage. At the same time, you're able to react to the changes and the market conditions much faster.
That's exactly the pitch we do as service providers, right?
Yeah.
Shifting it left and pretty much running the show. Yes, I agree.
And I would add to that as like in the case of DevOps, there are a lot of good practices in the IT space that unfortunately, I remember a few years ago, it was a huge trend again behind service management best practices and implementing processes and methodologies that could truly make the IT organization leaner and more effective. But like everything, right? That was a wave. Some people jump into that wave, but most of them just let it went through, right? So I think we need to go back to some of those fundamentals, right? I mean, there are fundamental processes and practices that can be put in place, just like DevOps, to minimize the risk associated with technology, reduce the cost of maintenance and operation. Because at the end, the worst investment in technology, and that is the problem that most people forget, is on maintenance and operation.
Yeah.
Because that gives you no additional or market advantage. If you're just operating your business, you're just surviving, right? So the less you put into that side of the business, and the more you can put into innovation, servicing the organization actual business drivers, will make your investments in technology something that you can see and recover, right? But you see most of the organizations out there keep on expending ridiculous amount of money because they don't have the right processes for the basic operation of their IT, right? And it used to be that they had all of these data centers and all of those other things. Now they do the same, they just do it on the cloud, and they have no control on how they spend on the cloud, right? But they still have zero control and zero processes and zero best practices. They just think that they're more efficient because they don't have the people.
So one common theme I'm hearing from all three of you is governance. And governance comes in multiple flavors and multiple shapes: IT governance, process governance, budget governance. But yeah, it seems like governance would be a common factor that we're talking about. A couple of other things that we can also, companies usually look at is really rationalizing and prioritizing their IT portfolio. So before a recession hits, maybe you have a 3-year plan. In that 3-year plan, you're supposed to be spending X millions of dollars. Well, this is a time now to do a re-rationalization and realignment of those IT initiatives with your business strategy. If it's a recession well, how is your business strategy adapting to that? Because if your business strategy is not adapting to a recession or an economic downturn, you're just basically heading into a brick wall. Now, after rationalizing, you may say, hey, we're going to stay the course. That's fine, but the exercise of rationalization needs to occur. This also presents an opportunity for companies to revisit their contracts with their vendors, because vendors know that their heads are on the chopping block, because that's the first place where IT spend is going to start diminishing. And vendors, as in vendors that are providing professional services, vendors that are providing products, subscriptions, and it's a good time for a company to renegotiate some of those terms.
Absolutely.
I will take that to another one of those very good practices that, again, had a lot of momentum a few years ago, and it is architecture. The fundamental reason why you have a bad spending is because you don't have a consistent, well-defined architecture on your organization. And that architecture, that essentially leads to chaotic architectures where you have 3 different vendors for the same solution. You have solutions that cannot talk to one another. You have inconsistent infrastructure supporting your solutions that lead into multiple disciplines and more people just to support and maintain the operation of the business. And it goes back to, are we actually looking into technology? And just as when we're going to build or buy a building, we go with an architect and he designs what we need based on our business need and optimizes airflow and light or whatever. We forget that the technology needs fundamental architecture to ensure that the best practices, that the components are reused, that we minimize overexpending on things that may not necessarily be part of what the business needs, right?
Actually, there's even one more step taking further is also to look at the business architecture and the necessary business capabilities. Right? Mm-hmm. Many times when softwares are brought in-house or tech systems are designed, and as organizations evolve and business changes, nobody takes time to go back and say, is this the capability do I still need? Do I have redundant capabilities because there was a merger between 2 companies and now they have similar systems? But taking a business architecture view and doing a capability lens will also help drive the technical architectures to then look for the things, right? The second point is also along the way, is also use the opportunity, because when recessions are, you're right, trying to hold on to your best people need not be the people who have all the knowledge of your current and the future systems. Using an opportunity to upskill your teams and giving them newer roles would be a good way to, one, manage and keep them, but also use the opportunity to take them to the next level in the organization, whether they're picking up new technical skills or leadership skills.
That's a fantastic point, because a company can produce IP, they can produce assets, but I'm a firm believer that your people are your biggest assets. If your people decide to walk out on you, or if they decide, hey, I'm just not going to put in my 100%, that's pretty much it. That's the beginning to an end of your firm. Yeah. So keeping employees motivated, like you're kind of mentioning, making sure they realize there are other paths should they choose to expand their horizons is available. All right, very good points. So in this scenario, how can AI help? What's the role of AI? And is there a role of AI during this portfolio rationalization, performance management, basically kind of tightening up the belt around the waist?
I think AI has a role fundamentally across the entire IT value stream, right from ensuring proper capture of the business requirements and identifying, to Suresh's point, what is needed versus what is nice to have, to all the way to creating AI-driven pair programming, so that instead of having 2 developers working on the same task, there are now with OpenAI and things like, for example, like AWS Code Whisperer or Copilot, there's so much support that you can get with AI. So one, your code is more qualitative. You are spending less time than what it used to be to write the code, but also able to do your test case creation and testing. Therefore, you're taking AI as your buddy to move along and accelerate. Now, same if you go into your application support, there are a number of AI-driven technologies that are now watching for potential failures in the application through some predictive analytics, looking at prior historical failures. Therefore, you are able to prevent a failure, and instead of reacting, you're being more proactive and address the issues even if they occur. Therefore, your cost of operations or your total cost of ownership can be further contained.
It's a very good point. Preventative maintenance. It's something companies are aspiring to do, especially companies that have actual products, physical products, machinery and stuff,
Yeah.
and especially with the advent of IoT, the integration of IoT streaming data and the AI algorithm on top, and to your point, past maintenance issues, taking all that into account, at the very least it can give you some sort of an indication that over the next 6 months, here are your key prioritized assets that you need to give a little TLC to.
So AI should always combine with data and analytics as well as automation. That's my advice to most of my customers. What we do is we take every level and see what is a repetitive task and see if we can either automate or create a bot. Right? And everything is data-driven decision, so that the cost of maintenance for those bots should not be like, it should make a business case, right? If I am going to, replace a customer support representative using chatbots, using AI, it means that it has to create that many channels, and the cost of, deploying that solution equates or it gives more revenue than the cost of a resource. At the same time, the resource can be used to provide the knowledge on what is required to develop that solution. And then they will upskill towards the other areas. So we always advocate reusing the existing resources. At the same time, identify opportunities to automate. What are the levers? How do we do it? And everything is to repeatability, redundancy. At the same time, we should be able to scale it at no cost, and that is the solution we provide most of the times.
Yeah, I think the chatbot example that you provided is very relevant, because now, before chatbots were like your Siri or whatnot, they were very prompted, predetermined answers, but now, post generative AI, post ChatGPT, there are so many LLM models and so many applications that are being built on top that you can find a readily available solution that you can deploy and have it learn based on your customer service manual. I actually just finished a project, a large data governance implementation, and one of the outputs was almost like a 500-page manual, a data governance playbook as we call it. Very detailed, step by step, by function, by persona, by scenario. Good luck swifting through that 500-page document to see what you want. And and one of the biggest problem there was consumption and adoption. Okay, great, we have a 500-page playbook. How do we make it consumable to the end user that's going to be using it? We actually used one of the widely available, LLMs, and we trained it on that 500-page playbook. We put 1 or 2 people on top from a governance perspective, ran simulations and testing for it for about, I want to say, 2 weeks. And when we deployed it, it was amazing. I've never seen adoption with so many thumbs up. Our adoption rate was over 95%. Our satisfaction rate was over 97%. And this is a multi-billion-dollar global organization. And these are astounding numbers. And the reason is that consumability of what was produced.
I think you just touched exactly on the exercise that I was going to mention, which is we got to move more and more into AI driving a lot of these operation, documentation, support processes that are now expensive. Training is extremely hard. And it's something that with a little bit of work, we can easily optimize the operation in the IT space that is so predictable in a great, 90% or more, right? So that you reduce the role of the technical resources to the more complex or non-known scenarios, right? At the end, the AI will only answer what it knows, right? It will not ever be able to figure out something that has never been seen.
Yeah.
But if every time we solve a problem, and it goes back to, again, to governance and to service management and the need to keep a knowledge base, right? Every time you solve a problem, you feed it into this engine. Incrementally, your support time, your operations time will be reduced as AI is capable of answering those questions in a millisecond, right?
Yep, absolutely. All right, I just want to make sure we give the audience some time to ask questions. I'm going to quickly swift around a couple of these key questions there. We'll try to keep our answers to 30 seconds or less so you guys can have a chance to ask us questions. All right, so an important question that I get a lot is, well, how can tech spending be optimized without hindering innovation?
Innovation is an enabler. We are at the right time because the recession in 2007 is different than the recession now because you have cloud, you have automations, you have AI. It's like you have tons of tools where you can identify and cut corners. That's how I would take it,
We have a program in our organization that we take to our clients called Sparkle. What Sparkle does is focus on contextual innovation for the organizations. And we also go and work with a number of startups who have one of the brightest ideas, but always struggle to get in front of large enterprises. Yep. So by keeping the cost low and trying to innovate fast, you're actually trying multiple technology firms or multiple services at the same time and pick the right one that meets the need. And to your point, the advent of cloud and AI is only able to accelerate because you're no longer waiting on the companies to build the infrastructure to try these new technologies.
I think your Spark operates with no compromise to SLAs. That's important, right?
No, the last point you made, all the points you made were very valid, but the last point that you made really resonates with me because in my past life, I ran an incubation chamber, and the idea for that incubation chamber isn't just incubating new technologies, but we took it a step further and we said, all right, we're going to create an incubation chamber where we can get several of these next-gen technologies in. We're going to then create business use cases where we can maybe integrate a couple, and we're going to get some of our clients to take it out for a test drive. And within the confines of that incubation chamber and within the confines of obviously a lot of NDAs, but what we saw was companies that are willing to take a chance on those use cases, putting in just fractions of dollars what they would spend to understand the art of possible. And once they saw the output, that they actually changed some of their goals for the next 5 years to include some of not just the AI products, but that's the thought process of integration of all these technologies that are there. And mind you, this is before the whole generative AI hype. This is before AI was mainstream. So yeah, partnering with those types of partners was absolutely critical. I also think this also provides us with a opportunity to focus on value-driven innovation. So there might be 20 ideas on the docket. Now it's time to really pressure test which of those 20s will really provide that value that the business is expecting. Pressure test it, make it fail, and then choose the right ones.
Yeah, I would like to add that to me, a key component of supporting innovation, even when you have cost restrictions, is best practices from the ground up, in the sense of architecture, for instance. Avoid vendor locking. Every time you walk into a vendor locking scenario, you're risking your company's future on a third party, right? Yep. And in that downturn, that third party may not be on the same boat you are, and they will not be willing to give you a break on the cost, or you have no option to move. So we need to have some of these good fundamental practices, right? I mean, avoid vendor lock-in, embrace open innovation through open source technologies and things of that sort. Minimize operation costs through automation, right? So those are foundational aspects, and most the most common things are things that are usually an afterthought in most of the things that companies do until it buys them, right? It comes to get them, right? And so I always advise my customers, even if you think, oh, this cloud provider, I don't want to mention anyone, I mean, they're in essence, this is the same, it really doesn't matter. Oh, they have such a great product, they have this solution that will make my life easier and I will be more productive because I'm using their technology. I say, yeah, you may get something out the door a little faster than if you go down this open technology path. But what will happen afterwards? What will happen in a year or two if that vendor decides to deprecate that technology, or their business cost strategy doesn't match your business need, right? So keeping your IT, your technology foundation open, agnostic, and flexible is fundamental to support innovation, even when you have to cut costs, because it has happened to me so many times that a customer comes to me and says, oh yeah, we did this great development with you, but you know what, I need to reduce my cloud costs, can we move to a cheaper option? Right?
Yep.
Well, there are opportunities there also to do things like FinOps, right? Identify which workloads are best used in what scenarios. How much of that should, again, cloud is not the only solution to lower cost. There are scenarios where your on-prem may be better utilized, right? So
I did a great exercise of that in a customer that needed to downsize a solution. They were running on a cloud, spending tens of thousands of dollars. We did analysis. We moved them to an on-prem Kubernetes cluster. Mm-hmm. They ended up expending $500 versus tens of thousands that they were expending, and they got the same solution running still for the purpose that they needed, right? So,
yeah.
In fact, there's actually an Amazon Prime case study that was out there and created a lot of waves. Amazon Prime, they were actually doing a micro architecture and have huge amount of cloud consumption, but when they realized that they had issues in performance and their costs were going up, guess what they did? They actually moved back to a monolithic EC2 architecture and lowered the cost.
And
that
they
was
themselves have this well-architected framework, right? But what happens is, like, the reason I was piling is, I just published my, demystifying FinOps, build your own career book in Amazon, where it talks about the business case and how do you create a value proposition when you move to cloud. Because anything you throw on cloud, it means like you are like doubling the cost of your data center.
The same problem.
So, yeah.
All right, so looking at the time, one final question then. How can IT leaders demonstrate the value of tech spending to other business leaders during a recession?
Establishing KPIs and organizational key factors that are important, right? And ensuring those KPIs are met, those SLAs are met, but most importantly, showing the actual value that is being delivered, whether it is fundamentally either lowering the cost or better yet is increasing the revenue.
So quantifying the ROI.
Quantifying the ROI.
I will go back to the business architecture fundamental, and it is if your IT spending is not line up to your business goals,
Yep.
there's nothing else to talk about, right?
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, if you're spending in line with what the business needs, the conversation will be easy. They may cut you here or there on little things that you can improve,
Yeah.
but you're doing what the business needs.
Yeah.
End of
Absolutely.
the conversation there, right?
Absolutely. And showcasing success stories is also a great way of showing the return. And my personal favorite is illustrate the cost of inaction. If you do not do this, this is what's going to happen. And if you paint a bloody enough story, you will get their attention. And when you have their attention, that's when you have to sell them. All right, I do want to leave some time for questions here. Does anyone have any questions for us, for the panel? Or are you saying we did such a great job that you guys have zero questions? I'll take that too.
One question.
Hello, I have a question about opportunity sizing. So how do you opportunity size in your organizations? Like how do you calculate TAM, sums,
Opportunity sizing as it relates to business growth, or opportunity sizing as it relates to acquisition? Maybe give us a little bit more.
yeah, business growth.
Everything ties to the margin. And how are we competing with competitor? And who is your competitor? If anyone knows that, then they know the answer.
What about when you're creating a market and there is no competitor, which does exactly the same thing?
Then there is no limit. You have to set your own targets and then just, make progress into zillions. I think you're talking
What's
about...
your appetite as well?
Yeah.
What is
Until
your
somebody
appetite?
copycats you, and then you have a competition.
Yeah, at some point, yes.
Yeah, it comes down to appetite. If there is no competition, to your example, then what is your risk appetite on betting on a particular technology, betting on a particular business model? Because at the end of the day, the opportunity, the carve out of the opportunity is really business led. If it's an innovative business model, and if it's first of its kind, obviously the upside is endless, but how much money are you willing to put in? And that directly ties to what your business goals are, what your thing is. And I'm getting, looks like really nasty eyes from people, so I'm going to stop talking here. Guys, thank you so much. Please find us. We're going to be around for another hour or two. You guys have been great.
Thank you
Thank you very much.